With a powerful star cast of Hollywood A-listers Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and Sandra Bullock, and a box office collection of $159 million to boast, Demolition Man was one of the biggest hits of 1993. However, despite its stunning cast, impressive box office numbers, and its futuristic premise, the science fiction action flick wasn't without setbacks. In fact, it had a pretty decent number of hiccups right from the very beginning. But before we dive deeper, we have a small request. Please consider subscribing to our channel. It's one small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Demolition Man begins in 1996 Los Angeles with a psychopath villain and anarchist, Simon Phoenix, played by Wesley Snipes, hijacking a bus full of people and keeping them hostage in an isolated building. That's when Sly Stallone, aka LAPD super cop John Spartan, whose sobriquet is Demolition Man owing to the destruction he causes in carrying out his duty, is summoned to stop the bad guy. Staying true to his nickname, Sergeant Spartan blows up the building to capture Phoenix and ends up being questioned for his action that resulted in the deaths of the innocent hostages. He and Phoenix are tested in court, which sentences them to be cryogenically frozen in an experimental cryo prison as a form of rehabilitation, after which they will be reinstated into society sometime in the future. However, 36 years later, in the year 2032, Phoenix escapes the cryo prison during a parole hearing, causing chaos and destruction in the futuristic utopian megalopolis of San Angeles, which has been formed by combining the cities of Los Angeles, San Diego, and Santa Barbara. Spartan, who is still in time freeze, is brought back to life in order to capture the at-large fugitive. This sets the premise of Demolition Man. Though the film started as a relatively straightforward sci-fi action project, it quickly became a production nightmare for almost everyone involved, due to its over-the-top explosive nature, especially for first-time feature director Marco Brambilla, who had previously only worked in TV commercials. But even before it concerned the director and the other crew members, let's talk about the film's star-crossed script, which had been languishing in developmental hell for 6 years before the cameras finally rolled. Demolition Man's original script was written by rookie screenwriter Peter Lenkov, who was fresh out of college with no connections in Hollywood whatsoever and sold it to Warner Brothers. Lenkov had been inspired by Lethal Weapon, Cops, and stories of cryogenically frozen celebrities, and he'd been hearing Sting's popular number Demolition Man on repeat mode due to a broken cassette player, and hence came up with a name for the script. The initial pitch was rejected by a Warner Brothers exec who didn't get the whole frozen cop idea, but was later okay once Lenkov added the super cop chasing a fugitive in the future angle. Despite making it to the studio, the script was rewritten by multiple writers, including Fred Decker and Jonathan Lemkin, both of whom were uncredited. Finally, the screenplay was rewritten by Daniel Waters at the behest of director Marco Brambilla. Speaking of the director, Brambilla himself may not have been the first choice of the producers, but his friend and fellow director David Fincher, who had previously directed Alien 3 in 1992, recommended his name to producer Joel Silver of Silver Pictures. Mr. Silver initially gave Brambilla a handsome $45 million budget to play with, but owing to the director's eccentric vision and the film's explosive nature and the film going over schedule, the budget went overboard, and it ultimately took $77 million to make. However, despite giving him a big budget, Silver kept changing the director's assistants during the production of the film, ultimately cycling through 5 different ADs by the end of filming. Also, owing to the producer's nosy nature and the film's delayed schedule, many crew members left before completion. Meanwhile, WB was quite critical of Silver's hiring of an inexperienced director whom they thought was the main reason for the delays. However, Silver defended his choice, stating that the delays were caused due to the film's complexity and not because of Brambilla's inexperience. The cameras finally rolled in February 1993, but the production woes did not end there. The film's leading man, Stallone, apparently suffered an injury that halted the filming for about a week, and the heavy downpours in LA repeatedly kept delaying the filming. Plus, there was a mishap on the sets of the film when a soundstage was damaged in a fire. Many wondered if the production was jinxed, but the director and producer were hell-bent on completing the project. Demolition Man would not have been a huge success had it not been for the superb star cast. But did you know that the first choice of actors was a completely different lot altogether? Let's start with Sandra Bullock, who plays the role of Lieutenant Lenina Huxley, a role which was originally intended for Lori Petty, who had established herself as a reliable actress in films like Point Blank and A League of Their Own. Petty had even started filming and had worked for roughly 2 days before she was unceremoniously fired from the role. When asked why he fired Petty, producer Joel Silver gave a diplomatic answer, saying that it was due to creative differences, which was far from the case. Petty stated the reason was personal differences with Stallone, whom she got along like oil and water, creating an unsustainable working relationship with him from the start. The studio executives were also unhappy with Petty's dailies, and the culmination of all this meant that she was destined to leave very early. Petty's swift departure created a big void and an immediate crisis for the production and the producers, who needed to find a replacement ASAP to avoid any further delays, since the film was already plagued with years of setbacks. This prompted the producers to rope in a little-known at the time Sandra Bullock, who had played minor roles in films like Hangman, Who Shot Pat, Love Potion No. 9, and A Thing Called Love. The role that Petty left was Bullock's first major role, and Demolition Man marked a significant milestone in her career, landing her a breakthrough role in the 1994 film Speed, which propelled her into superstardom and cemented her legacy as Hollywood royalty. Now, that's called luck by pure chance. While Sandra Bullock got to play Lenina Huxley, the producer's original casting vision for John Spartan and Simon Phoenix was radically different from what we ultimately saw. Though today we can't imagine anyone else doing the roles of John Spartan and Simon Phoenix other than Sly Stallone and Wesley Snipes, these roles were not theirs to begin with. In fact, the film was envisioned as a vehicle for Steven Seagal, who at the time was riding high on the success of the 1992 action thriller Under Siege, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And for obvious reasons, Seagal was supposed to play John Spartan, and Van Damme was attached to play the villain. The Belgian-born actor later revealed that the script was also significantly different from what we saw in the theaters, suggesting that the film's tone and approach underwent major revisions, with Brambilla rewriting the script with Daniel Waters to better accommodate Stallone and Snipes in their respective roles. Van Damme said in an interview that he had no problem playing second fiddle to Seagal, who was the studio's man at the time. But what's interesting is that after Stallone was roped in to play the hero, he insisted that Jackie Chan play the role of Simon Phoenix, which obviously Jackie declined due to his image as a do-gooder and a leading man, especially among the Asian audiences. Chan, who was being prepped to be the next Bruce Lee in Hollywood, refused to play villainous roles to avoid being typecast, and concerns about how this would have affected his career trajectory. Nevertheless, Snipes, who is a martial arts black belt himself, played his part quite well. But just when the producers started feeling the never-ending script rewrites had finally ended, and the casting issues were all sorted, and that they could get started with the filming, Demolition Man faced yet another significant setback, or should I say, breakout. A fire broke out on one of the sound stages used in the film, which halted the production for some time. This may not have been a major issue for the film, but it added to the already overscheduled shoot. For the unversed, the movie was primarily filmed on sound stages and back lots, with some location shoots in LA. Several of the film's strikingly futuristic sets, like the cryo prison and the police headquarters, were built on cleverly designed sound stages to create visually stunning effects, such as the cryo prison explosion during Phoenix's escape. And by the way, did you know that the abandoned building that served as Phoenix's hideout in the movie was actually the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power building that was demolished using explosives for the film? It was the first time in 30 years that the city of LA had approved the demolition of a building with explosives, and for a movie. With all the explosions and fires, it's safe to say the first-time director really had a Hollywood baptism by fire. Apart from all the production delays, which meant the movie, which was originally intended for a 75-day shooting schedule, went over schedule and took 112 days to make. Demolition Man turned out to be a very successful film. In fact, its depiction of a near-perfect utopian future propelled the movie into pop culture. Speaking of the utopian future and pop culture, how can we forget about the much-talked-about 3 seashells. The 3 seashells come into the picture when John Spartan takes a dump and encounters the unfamiliar bathroom fixtures in the future, that is in the year 2032. When Spartan looks perplexed by the 3 seashells, Lenina Huxley exclaims, "He doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells." Ever since then, the 3 seashells have become one of the most speculated and discussed movie props as fans and movie buffs speculate to figure out what the 3 seashells really are and how they are used in the bathroom. Stallone himself rather embarrassingly said that 2 of the 3 seashells were meant to be used like chopsticks to be pulled gently, and the 3rd is used for scraping what's left, suggesting that the seashells had replaced toilet paper in the film. Meanwhile, Miss Bullock, whose famous dialogue started the 3 seashells meme fest, suggests that the 3 seashells are more like a bidet or a musical instrument like little maracas, with a hygiene element attached to them. But both actors' explanations don't seem to give us a convincing answer. Nonetheless, what we know at least is that the film's writer, Daniel Waters, was thinking of something outrageous and absurd to add to the bathroom of the future when he was writing that part of the script, and he couldn't think of anything funny, so he called up a friend who happened to be in his bathroom when he answered his call, and he just said, "Well, there's a bag of seashells behind my toilet seat." And this gave Waters the idea for the 3 seashells, which went on to become one of the most discussed topics on fan forums and one of Hollywood's greatest unsolved mysteries. Staying on the topic of the film's futuristic setting, Demolition Man is a movie that depicts a near-perfect utopian city of San Angeles in the year 2032, where everything is sanitized and whatever is deemed incorrect or obscene is regarded as a crime. Even things like crime, fighting, cursing, smoking, drinking alcohol, physical sex, and public displays of affection, heck, even handshakes, coffee, and chocolates are considered forbidden. It's almost like a zero-crime society gone overboard, bordering on crazy. The explanation we get from Huxley in the form of her answer to Spartan's question is that society has evolved and emerged from all the wrongdoings and sins of the past, which put the world into great danger, suggesting that all the warfare, crime, and sin committed by the people from the past made them develop an environment bereft of all these elements for the safety and progress of mankind. Demolition Man also had several predictions and prophecies that have actually come true, albeit to a certain extent, such as the use of voice control, video calling, self-driving cars, biometric implants, and even Arnold Schwarzenegger's political career. But despite its box office success and cultural relevance, why hasn't Demolition Man been made into a franchise like other successful movies? Well, rumors of a Demolition Man 2 have been doing the rounds for almost as long as we can remember, but it seems like it's taking forever. The first rumors about a sequel came out in 1993, when US Weekly magazine reported that a sequel was planned for 1995. Sylvester Stallone had also said, "I'd like to make a sequel to Demolition Man," but he also said, "The ship has sailed, and maybe there are more challenges waiting on the horizon." However, it seems like it's going to be forever. Meanwhile, Marco Brambilla isn't all sold on the idea of a Demolition Man 2 happening anytime soon, as he feels films today have no personality and that the new Hollywood of 2023 and later may not be able to recapture the same satirical edge and anarchic freedom that made the original so memorable. Despite this, Sly Stallone has insisted that Demolition Man 2 is indeed in the works and is going to happen very soon. Just don't ask him when. That statement was given in May 2020, and it's already been 5 years since then. So for now, we can only wait and watch. Although we're not very sure about when or if at all a Demolition Man 2 is happening, what we are sure about is the infamous franchise wars shown in Demolition War, the result of which meant that only Taco Bell reigned supreme, beating the likes of Burger King, McDonald's, and Pizza Hut to be the one and only restaurant chain still in operation in 2032. And though this could have just been another product placement due to the fact that Daniel Waters originally wanted Burger King to be the de facto restaurant of the future, but the chain wasn't interested in being featured in an R-rated movie, and neither was McDonald's. This meant that only Taco Bell and Pizza Hut were left. And when Taco Bell came on board, Waters decided to go with Taco Bell in the US version of Demolition Man, since Taco Bell is quite popular in the US, and Pizza Hut in the UK and Europe, since Taco Bell is less popular than Pizza Hut in the old continent. The fact that Taco Bell and Pizza Hut are both owned by PepsiCo explains their placement. Nevertheless, when John Spartan saves Dr. Cocteau and is called for a Taco Bell dinner, and surprised to know that there's dinner and dancing at a fast food restaurant, we were not surprised, because the franchise wars are a real thing. So a future where there's only one dominant fast food chain is not so far-fetched as it may seem. Moreover, due to Demolition Man's association with the future and predictions, the film served as the perfect platform for Taco Bell, which continues to get free promotion even 30 years after the film's release. Demolition Man also spawned a series of merchandise in the form of action figures and vehicles produced by Mattel. The toys included 9 Hot Wheels cars from the movie, including a 1970s Oldsmobile 442 that was used in the car chase between Spartan and Phoenix in the future. The company also launched 7 action figures that were based on the New Adventures of He-Man styling. Additionally, there was a Demolition Man toy set, which included a red convertible called the Fast Blast 442, based on the Oldsmobile 442, an airplane called the Bowler Jet, and a missile shooter toy gun. The movie also inspired a video game of the same name, developed by Acclaim Entertainment and Virgin Interactive. There were 2 different types of games, a 16-bit shooting game and a 3DO version multi-genre game with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes reprising their roles as John Spartan and Simon Phoenix. Demolition Man was also adapted into a 4-part limited comic book published by DC Comics. Meanwhile, Taco Bell, which also became synonymous with the movie, recreated the 2032 San Angeles Taco Bell restaurant and launched Demolition Man nacho fries at the 2018 San Diego Comic-Con to celebrate the film's 25th anniversary. Demolition Man's mainstream success has left its legacy on a lot of things and a lot of people, including American former professional basketball player Dennis Rodman, who, inspired by Snipes' character in the film, had dyed his hair blonde and styled it the same way as Simon Phoenix for his San Antonio Spurs debut. Meanwhile, Snipes himself hated the hairdo and shaved it off as soon as the shooting ended. The film's depiction of sex in the utopian sin-free future, where Spartan and Huxley, aka Stallone and Bullock, engage in virtual sex using their VR headsets, inspired the development of erotic games from the Oculus Rift VR headset. How can the infamous 3 seashells be left out of Demolition Man's legacy? Well, the 3 seashells have made their way into the player's bathroom in the video game Cyberpunk 2077. However, what's more interesting is how the film's vision of a future where social distancing is the norm and shaking hands is considered a crime found meaning and renewed relevance during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 21, with many claiming that the film predicted the preventative methods long before. We finally reached the end of our video, and it's time now for our marvelous verdict. Despite its initial hiccups and production issues, Demolition Man went on to become a huge blockbuster and one of the greatest sci-fi action thrillers of Sylvester Stallone's career. And although I would have personally wanted to see Jackie Chan trading blows with Stallone in the movie, I feel that nobody could have played the role of Simon Phoenix the way Wesley Snipes did. And I respect Jackie Chan's reasons for not being in the movie. Having said that, I can't wait for its sequel, which has been in developmental hell for more than 32 years. I'd like to see how the sequel would pan out, especially now when we have so much more advanced technology than 3 decades ago. Oh, and yes, about the 3 seashells conspiracy theories, keep them coming in the comments section below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.